computer. Fantastic. All right, guys, welcome. All right, so get started. We are here for at least an hour and a half. I will not shortchange you guys. I'll go slow. I'll assume that majority of you are new to SAFe, and that's probably what brought you here. You may have had some experience or are in the potentially area of Agile. In some cases, maybe you've done a quote unquote CSM class, you might be a Scrum Master, and others might just be totally new. And so we will go with the assumption we have a large crowd. So let's have, we'll give everybody the opportunity to ask questions and be patient with the others, okay? So agenda. This is just a high-level agenda. The magic here is the SAFe framework, which is where I will probably go to spend most of my time. This is not a dog and pony show. It's not a sales pitch. I really want to educate you guys on what SAFe is about. Most of you may know about Scrum and Kanban. So very one slide about the framework itself. If you're new, great. I'll talk about that. We'll talk about some of the state of the Agile report. Just a slide, just kind of shows you where things are trending from a survey perspective globally. Also, what is SAFe really? What is this framework about? Behind me is what the framework looks like. So looks pretty complicated, but it's actually not. Why SAFe? Why should I move into SAFe? Why should I even spend my time and money into getting, maybe even looking at a SAFe class or just understanding the SAFe framework? The adoption of SAFe across, mostly I'll talk about where US adoption is, and obviously a little bit of Canada. But to be quite honest, it is spreading. It is spreading in Middle East. It's spreading in Asia. It's spreading in Europe. No matter where you are, you'll see this huge community of people that are going and doing a lot of Agile, obviously, and now also SAFe. And then the framework is where the meat of the discussion is. Okay. And then if you're interested, I'll kind of give you guys an overview of what certifications are out there. This is not necessarily, you coming and taking it from me. It doesn't matter to me where you go. But the point is, I would just want to educate you on the different options you have. And a lot of times people ask me, look, I've done cert XYZ, what's my next step? Or this is my role, what do I start with, right? So there's almost like 13 certifications out there. So which one do you pick? If you had only choice of one based on your limited funds that you have, where should I start with? Okay, so we'll talk about that in any Q&A. Okay, so we did document a lot of questions answers from this session. People were mentioned about things that they want to get out of this session, so we'll obviously try to address most of those questions, or maybe all of those questions. Okay, all right, so these are some of the questions, yada yada. Okay, so let's get started. Rules. Because we are virtual, obviously you'd like everybody to mute themselves if you're not already muted. As I mentioned, got your consent to record it. I will share the recording in an email. Respect for everyone. Understand everybody's new potentially here. So no question is a quote unquote naive or stupid questions. I enjoy being asked questions. I enjoy sharing knowledge. So please pick my brain and take the opportunity to ask any questions. I'm not an expert, but I think I know somewhat of my space. No self promotion, right? This is all about psychology safety. We're not here marketing. People are not joining calls here to promote themselves. We're just really trying to learn and grow with each other. Okay. Videos on is preferred. That's my option. If you have, I would appreciate it. If not, I understand. Questions, answers, hopefully to the end, if I haven't answered it throughout the process. And then through this session, maybe some of you may realize that, you know what, this is probably just too big for me. I am not ready for this. I am almost starting my career or journey in Agile, and I hear this whole buzzword about Agile, but I don't want to go invest in a SAFe framework at this point of my career. And maybe this is not meant for you. So then I would recommend that maybe we start with an Agile foundational class, right? Just fundamentals of Agile, what it is. Now you have two options. I did a survey, and these were the top two requests that I got out of a dozen things that are prioritized to these webinars or free sessions. Agile Foundation could be the next one. So you have an opportunity at the end of the class to tell me, hey, can you do an Agile Foundation session like this one, an hour and a half, or maybe I might even stretch myself and do a one-day boot camp for you guys, an entire boot camp. And money is not the issue. It could be like $50, all I care about. But the point is, then it just shows that people are really want to take a class and they're really interested in investing them themselves. Sometimes free sessions are just not for everybody, right? And also for my own time. Okay, so we're good with that. Let's move on. I have a little bit of YouTube channel, which I started with my last sessions. It's got some good hits on some of the sessions we've run. I'm assuming this one probably get a couple of hundred hits too. So my background, obviously, many of you don't know me. You may have interacted me. Maybe you're on my LinkedIn. I'm fortunate to be on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. I have a good amount of followers there, on 10K now. So a little bit about myself, again, not promoting myself, but just so you guys who know who I am. My name is Imtiaz Fazil. I know the name is a little hard to say it sometimes, but it's Imtiaz Fazil. I work for a large Fortune 100 company. I am a corporate VP there as part of the program management office. And my primary role is in organization, agile, and DevOps transformation, right? So I lead that, a lot of those transformation engagements, all the way from teams all the way to leadership, right? So I work with the leadership teams to adapt and broaden our footprints on agility across the business. And then obviously I help and coach and mentor a lot of teams and program quote unquote release train engineers and everybody in far in between. Um, I do speak sometimes. I am quite busy, so I pick and choose where I can speak. But my goal is to really mentor people, right? I mentorship is to me is more valuable than going there and speaking for 45 minutes. So this session is not about that 45-minute webinar. Here's the deck. Thank you very much. Enjoy. I really want to share and ask questions, be able to answer questions, and be able to actually make you understand the framework a little bit more. Okay. We have to be a little careful just because these technically are a full 2 days class in many cases, and therefore the intent is people will learn the framework a lot more when they attend a 16-hour class. So I can never do justice for a 16-hour class in an hour, but I want to give you a sense of high level about what the framework is about and how you actually read the framework and how do you understand the framework and where do you actually fall into the framework, right? And if it makes sense for you or not. Okay, so LinkedIn, connect me with LinkedIn. I am also pretty good with my WhatsApp, and that's pretty much it. Okay, ignore the certifications. They're obviously, in my role, it's a little different because people sometimes question, hey, should I be doing a dozen or 2 dozen certification? I would say it depends on your role, right? You don't want to go crazy and doing certification that you would never benefit. The reason I've done some of these is because my scope is very broad, right? Because from an enterprise and also knowing different and gaining knowledge of different frameworks out there broadens my knowledge, right? From DevOps to business agility to different frameworks in Scrum, obviously different roles in product owners and Scrum masters. So that's what my scope is. Everything in the middle, the diamond, is all the safe, quote unquote, some of the safe certifications that you can learn about. Okay. All right. So 115, 40 people. Let's get started. Scrum. So if you're completely new to Agile, one thing you may have heard is called Scrum. Okay. And then if you're not, this is your time to learn the framework. Scrum, and I won't go to the history and that's all framework, but understand it's a framework. So it's a process that it defines some way that teams work to. There are certain roles in this framework. And what are they? They are a product owner, a scrum master, and the team. Okay. The team is obviously the individuals that are generally quote unquote developers and testers and so on and so forth. So when you practice Scrum in an organization, you're practicing majority of the bias you're at a team level. So you have a Scrum team, quote unquote. How big is a team? It depends. There's numbers all the way from 5 to 11, depending what books you read and what articles you read. So 5 to 11, 7, 9, plus or minus 2. Sometimes they say 7 to 11. So bottom line is it's still fairly a manageable, small size team. So let's say assume for our discussion between 5 to 11. So these individuals come together and they form a Scrum team. Now, Scrum is obviously based on the empirical process and has this framework. So let's talk about those frameworks for a second. Okay. Scrum says that, look, you guys, the team comes together and they start putting something in a product backlog. It could be anything, any product you can think about. Just think about a basic website that you need to do. So in order for you to build a website, or in order for you to build a web and a mobile app, or for in order for you to build an Amazon.com, or for you in order for you to build a LinkedIn.com, and the LinkedIn has all these beautiful features, right? Now something new is the LinkedIn stories. So in order for you to build something in this particular product, you need to understand what your product roadmap is. And that roadmap, whichever the high level roadmap is, comes down all the way down to the team level, and they are broken in something called user stories. So if you're totally new to this session, you've just learned something called user stories. And I won't go to the details about what user stories are and what the format is. You can search it up for this for the time being, but know that there's something in the backlog of things that the team has to do. By doing these things, ultimately you deliver a finished product. Okay, so you have things in the backlog, i.e. stories. The team works together, collaborates together, and they do it very frequently, and this is called sprints. So generally sprints are 1 to 4 weeks. Majority of the agile community and many of the organizations have adapted to a 2 weeks cycle. So every iteration or sprint is called a 2 weeks iteration. So they are traditionally known as sprints. So let's assume for exercise, this is a 2 week sprints. So again, individuals work together in a team. They work on something called a backlog, which has user stories, and they work on those user stories for 2 weeks. Then they work another set of user stories for another 2 weeks. Okay, I'm deliberately keeping it very, very simple, right? So if I'm not using the right terminology, I'm doing it for deliberately doing that. So you have user stories. The team decides and plans of the 1,000 stories that I need to do. What are the top ones that I need to worry about in this 2 weeks? Then in the next 2 weeks, I'm going to go through my 1,000 stories and pick the top ones, and I'm going to plan for those in the next 2 weeks. And as I go through my 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks, what I'm doing is I'm hopefully reducing what I intend to do, the entire backlog or my vision of the product. And I'm ultimately going down and down and shrinking the pie. And ultimately I'm working, finishing the work and delivering some, i.e. value or working software. So eventually when my product backlog is exhausted, I am actually delivering my entire product. Now we can keep on adding to the backlog. That's a different discussion. And I may want to now enhance my functionality. So bottom line is with the team plans for 2 weeks, then they start working on these 2 weeks. And then the end result of the 2 weeks, actually, let me take a step back. During the 2 weeks, couple of things happen. And for those that are project managers, right, this is an interesting article discussion that Scrum has a prescribed set of meetings, or better terminology, ceremonies, and they have a prescribed set of ceremonies, which means that every 2 weeks you need to do these 4, sometimes 5 ceremonies. What are they? We need to come together every morning and ask ourselves and talk to ourselves and find out whatever we took from this 1,000 stories into my sprint backlog of, let's say, 10 for this 2 weeks. How am I doing against these 10? Okay, so let's talk about among ourselves. I'm doing this. This is where I'm doing. This is what I was doing. This is what I discovered. This is what I had an issue with. I got blocked. I couldn't figure it out. I need some help, so on and so forth. So we're really talking about these every day in a meeting called Daily Scrum. At the end of the 2 weeks, what happens is something is completed, correct? Whatever that finished product is, something is completed. So now you're looking at it and you're presenting it to everybody in the team and those outside of the team. So that's called review. Let's review what the team did. And then we want to do a retrospective. Retrospective is nothing but looking at opportunities in this 2 weeks that we work together. If we can do anything better, maybe we'll continue doing something that has worked for us, and all those interesting discussions that happen within the team. Okay. So from a very high level Scrum, this is your framework. Teams or individuals come together over planning over 2 weeks called sprints. They work on user stories. They deliver some working software or valuable product, finished goods, so to speak, at the end of the 2 weeks. They continue to do that in a cycle. And then they look at what they did and they look for opportunities for improvement and continuing where they are doing well. Okay, so that's Scrum in a nutshell for you. Now there's another method called Kanban. And by the way, these are two major ones. There are so many out there. But the reason I'm bringing this up is because I'll show you how this fits into the SAFe framework. So Kanban is a method. It is a very simple method. And obviously, it's a lot more complicated than I'm going to make it for you. So it's something called signal board. I need to look at a card or a board, and it gives me a quick indication of how things are progressing. If I look at this beautiful board, it tells me, look, I have a couple things or two stories. We'll call these user stories for those that are new into the backlog. Three things are in the design. X number of things are being developed. Y number of things are in testing, and Z number of things are done. So I have two stories completed just by looking at this board, and I can very easily tell where other stories are in the process or state of the Kanban board. And the reason Kanban, and I won't again go through the history, that we can probably do just a session on Kanban, but the idea here is I want to be able to start a story and I want to quickly get it to the finish line. So flow of that story is important. Okay, so this is another method of teams. Some teams are Scrum teams, some teams run in Kanban. And the question is, what are the difference? There's a lot of difference between the two practices. There's some of similarities between the two practices, but again, this is a safe or educational class, but know that these are two different practices. And if you're not new, you've probably heard of both, okay? So let's continue talking about SAFe. So there's a State of Agile report, which is, by the way, free. So you Google it up and says, State of Agile report. This is the most recent one, I believe, in 2020. And this kind of takes a broader perspective of all the different frameworks out there and what are the frameworks that are pretty much the predominant, and where everything falls into the place. So SAFe, which is called a scaled agile framework, right? We're scaling to enterprises, happens to be a good percentage of the majority of use that's being used out there, or majority of the uh, people are using the same framework from a overall survey perspective. So it used to be 30% last year. It's now grown to 35%. Okay, so we are going to focus on what is this really is about, and why are people adapting to something called Scale Agile. Okay. So let's talk about SAFe, a scaled agile framework for enterprises. It brings in several practices, like I mentioned, Kanban and Scrum being one of them, several processes, methods into its framework. And I'll talk about the framework, obviously, right? So they do a fantastic job and an amazing marketing job at that as well, where they actually looked at so many frameworks, processes, tools, a lot of books, a lot of lean practices, now going down to the business agility track, even now starting to adapt something called, I mean, DevOps is not new, but they're now broadening the scope into maybe potentially DevSecOps, lean portfolio. Every practice and that you see out there, a lot of frameworks and knowledge you've gained and has existed for many decades. SAFe does a great job bringing all those practices and concepts into their own little framework that they call, right? So that is one of the things I've interestingly learned a lot, because it almost forces you to learn about all the different things as part of the framework. It started back in 2011 by this individual called Dean Leffingwell. He's the founder of SAFe. And since then, it's actually at its fifth biggest version, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. There's been some modifications throughout the process. One thing which is very interesting and very commendable, is that they constantly learn, like we all should in an agile community, right? Learn and then further improve their framework. So obviously no framework is perfect. So there was a question about, is it prescriptive? The answer is no, it's not prescriptive. It is it's a recommended approach. Can you tweak things around the framework? I would say absolutely. You should be able to tweak things about in the framework, but certain things that are more process driven or your business operation driven. Obviously, the framework has been thought through and has been built based on many, many use cases. So the framework is pretty solid, but there might be opportunities or some gaps or some different ways to do things that may work a little better in your organization or with your clients than what SAFe recommends. Now, you should not be a scrum master or a coach that says, you know what, because SAFe says do this, you have to do this, right? Sometimes you have to use your common sense. And you, as you grow and mature, you may find out, look, this is probably not the best way it works in reality. I would change it just a little bit. However, the principles are good. The principles are solid. The framework is solid. But in the adaptation of those frameworks in different levels, you may realize maybe if I just change this concept, and I will talk about some of the examples I'll give you. Maybe if I just change this concept to suit mine, maybe it works better for me. But I haven't forgot the foundation. I understand the foundation. I'm almost agreeing to an extent, but maybe 10, 20% I need to adjust. And I would say that's fine. That is absolutely fine. What you should not do is create a hybrid of multiple frameworks and then completely get lost in your own processes. One of the things I think doesn't work for me or for large organizations, and I hate to quote big companies, but there are some big, large companies, right? The 4Gs, they come in and they create their own framework. And my challenge with that is if you um, embed a hybrid or a completely one-off framework for an organization and a big organization at that matter, and then if you have a framework that's well prescribed and it's doing most of your job for you because they're continuously enhancing the product, to change the old behavior with the new one becomes very challenging. Okay, especially if you're an employee of a company that has its own hybrid, or if you come from one framework to the other, then you're completely lost. Like, which one do I follow? These guys are like all over the place, right? So my recommendation generally has been, look, there is a prescription out there. Why would you go reinvent the wheel? Yes, it's about, in some cases, marketing and business and cost, but generally there's a framework out there. So maybe adapt to those frameworks. There are people, I will tell you, who do not like SAFe at all, right? They just want to stay away from it just because they think it's just a big marketing concept. But obviously, there's a big community that is working towards SAFe and adapting SAFe. So you have to see what works best for you. But the job here today is for you to understand and make those decisions for yourself. Okay. Any questions so far? I'll take a quick 30 seconds pause. All right. So Scrum, Kanban, a little bit of Agile report. What is SAFe? Just a very big summary of what SAFe is and why SAFe. So this is interesting because a couple of reasons why people may be adapting to SAFe. And maybe more generally, why people are moving to the way of Agile working, right? Because waterfall, solid, PMI, very strong. It's been the leader over at least 3-4 decades, right? 3 decades at least, and it has still stays strong. And we're not comparing waterfall to agile. We're just saying, look, there, as things change and as things evolve, frameworks will evolve. Maybe SAFe may not exist 10 years from the road. Something else may come up, right? But currently, you as an individual, and the reason you want to think about agility is you want to see how you can also evolve with the changing times. So digital disruption is happening no matter where you are and what organization you're with, right? From public to private to government, there's a whole thing about digital disruption. If you're in any of the big companies, they have this entire thing about modernizations or digital transformation, right? These are the common terminologies we all hear in companies. Why? Because you cannot exist as a company, no matter who you are, without being mindful of the disruption that's happening around you. If you're not a company, or if you're a company that's completely stuck into very hierarchical structural format, and you're not thinking about innovation, chances are you may not survive too long, right? So in order to thrive and survive and just exist, you have to be a company that is always innovating. And one of the practices of SAFe says, look, innovation is a very key principle of business agility. So therefore, another reason why SAFe recommends this. Now, every company today is certainly a technology company. Why do I say that? And why do we think that is? Because look at the companies around us. If you're a banking company, are you just selling your loan, or is now the entire process of getting a loan and your experience being in COVID and being at home and being able to upload your checks, by taking a picture, is all technology concepts, right? These are all product and technology concepts. If I was a traditional company, I said, it doesn't matter to me, COVID or not, your only option you have is to walk into the door and deposit a check. Would a customer such as us ever go to the bank anymore? Chances are they won't, right? So as companies evolve, they have to think about all the technology things that are developing around them, right? Whether it's our the not dot com, but whether it's the Amazons, the Teslas, the banks, the insurances, the healthcare, they're all thinking about, they're now today all technology driven companies and have to understand there's digital disruption happening everywhere. So now the question is, well, I can still be an agile and I can work in my one team space. And this is where one of the questions comes in. Hey, I'm just a scrum master on one team. Is that good enough? The answer is yeah, it's great. But the intent of SAFe, which is scaling the the framework into an enterprise, then becomes the question is, you're not the only team in the company. And we happen to have 5 other teams that are either Scrum or Kanban within an organization. So how do you cannot still work in silos. And then if you keep on working in silos, many times people think that, hey, Agile doesn't work. So SAFe now brings in this framework called, how do I bring these 5 Scrum teams or Kanban teams or Agile teams to work together so we deliver value together and we're still part of a organization. Okay, so this is one of the key areas of not working in silos and bringing those teams together. And the question is, how do you do that? That's the whole framework about. And many companies, and you may be part of a small mid-sized company, but a lot of companies are really large organizations. And then somebody had brought up another framework called LESS. So SAFe is fantastic for very large organization. Now, I will tell you, I'm not an expert in LESS. It's in my backlog of things to do, but there's just so many out there. It's probably the least of my lower in my backlog of understanding the framework. But again, the adoption has been very less. In fact, if I go back to this thing, if you see this, less 4%. So if I was something who was a learner in this space, this is obviously a low priority for me. Obviously, right? Why would I spend my time today? Maybe I need to go here first, maybe even go here first, and then work my way to other areas of agility or frameworks. So yes, LESS is another framework, but the adoption has been very slow. And as you see, 35% of the people are now moving to SAFe and 4% is LESS. Okay. Value across the entire concept about moving from a waterfall-like idea to an agile space is that we want to deliver value quickly, right? So in our Scrum little example, we said every 2 weeks we want to deliver something of value, whatever that is. Maybe it's a very small piece, but it's something of value. Versus the waterfall, where we deliver technically value in the very end of the, let's say, a 9 months project. Okay. So how do we deliver value across? How do we break these little silos? And how do we bring teams together in something called a PI event, which is what we'll talk about. And then SAFe, like I mentioned, it's its 5th version, has now introduced a concept in the 5.0 framework, which is called business agility, right? Yeah, technology generally has adapted to an agile way of working. Yes, they have been doing a lot of development in agile space, using XP and other practices. But what does it really mean for the business? Traditionally, businesses are very resistant to these changes. So this framework specifically talks about something called 7 core competencies. So as a business, if you understand these 7 competencies, it will help you business to become more agile. Okay, so another great concept here. So let's go to the framework. Let's see what the next slide is about. Okay, so we'll talk about adoption now. Okay, so before I move on, any quick question? We're okay with time, so I'm not rushing.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
Yes, this is us. So when you mentioned the valley across, which means you are trying to say, you know, small agile team that they have a sprint goal, but the company also has a goal too.
Correct.
When you adapt the Scrum, when you adapt the safe framework, which means actually is agile team actually easily adapt this their sprint goal to the company goal, right? Or
Yes,
align.
absolutely. Right. So here's my little teams. I am a Scrum team. I do my thing, but whatever I'm delivering has to go up to, and generally, what's the hierarchy? Our hierarchy generally, there's different ways to do it. Generally, the hierarchy is epics, features, and user stories. Okay, depending what tools also you use and what methodology. But generally, this is the top three. There's no confusion in there. Jira sometimes confuses you in the way they put it. But generally, if my team is working on stories, to his point, I need to map this back to a bigger piece of the pie, which is called features. And what I drew here is a train, also called as ART, Agile Release Train. So this train of 5 teams, right? As I mentioned, we may have 5 silo teams working, and each team could, let's say, have 10 people for our simplicity. So 50 people are working together on something called an agile release train, and they are delivering or working towards delivering features for the company, right? So lack of better word, also referred to as a program, right? So generally, if projects were doing project managements were doing their individual projects, it rolls up to a program. Here, the idea is, I'm just making a comparison, maybe not the fairest comparison, but just to get the point across, that I as individual teams are working and we're collectively working together to deliver value for the enterprise or for the company under this something called a train. And as I'm delivering feature, something has to go up to the way my portfolios are getting funded. Correct? So money comes down. I allocate money as a, first of all, I have a vision. The company CIO, CEO has a 2020 vision. Their vision comes down to a portfolio. Portfolios are funded across different line of businesses sometimes. Everybody has a piece of pie. Everybody has to deliver against those. Well, spend money, which we all do, but also we have to deliver something against that money, right? And the way that gets broken down is generally called features delivered by the train, and that's broken down to user stories delivered by the team. So if you were a Scrum team, your visibility or your work is all stops right here. This is where you're stopping today. So now this framework says, look, how do I bring you up to an enterprise? I typically tell this to people. They ask me, what is the difference between the Scrum Master that I've done CSM and what Safe Scrum Master is about? And again, this is just the easiest way to explain things. I tell them look at it as a CSM plus, meaning if you just learn how to be a Scrum Master, an effective Scrum Master, or a product owner at the team level, the framework basically talks about how do you become a Scrum Master and a product owner now as part of the team, but also part of a bigger enterprise, the bigger train. That's the real key differentiator. So you are now broadening your scope or your role to at a larger enterprise. Okay, and as you scale, everything else scales, right? Because I can't run DevOps. I want to DevOps at the bigger program level. Maybe I want to value driven. I mean, I could do it at a team level, but DevOps is really an enterprise transformation. It's not a one team does automation and we're DevOps. It's really not that. It's a lot more than that. Correct? If I scale, how do I do agility at the organization level? How about my business doing agile? How about my HR doing working in the agile framework? How do I bring them together and technology and business together, not just at a team level, but at the bigger program level? Okay, does that answer your question? Yeah,
Yep, thank you.
you're welcome. So safe at a glance, I'm just checking my time, so 42 minutes. Okay, safe at a glance, I won't go through this. This is marketing, but I want to just get a point across here. And there was a question, how is this being adapted? Why should I look into this? 700,000 people have been trained in this certification, in one of those 13 certifications, right? So it is growing. It is certainly growing. 20,000 SAFe enterprises across every industries from healthcare to aerospace, right? So there's 20,000 enterprises right now that are using this framework. That's a pretty good number, correct? And then I won't go to the marketing part of that. The point being here is there have been use cases and case studies, I should say more specifically, that by adapting the scaled agile framework, there has been improvements in 50% of market time to market, 35% productivity has increased, quality has gone up, and employment engagement has been gone up by 30%. Right. So these are case studies. This is not me telling you, but this is case studies. Okay. So we'll just stop there. So the point is, it is spreading. I typically get people who may decide to take a class. They'll say, one of the reasons I'm taking this class is because I was looking for a job, and they specifically are saying you need SAFe certification. A lot of times we used to say preferred. Now it's almost required. So a lot of companies are now requiring that you have the SAFe certification. And why is that? Because if you don't have the understanding of the framework, if I put you in a safe environment, you might probably struggle just a little bit. I shouldn't say a lot, but you'll struggle a little bit because there's some differences between how you have traditionally operated at a team scrum level and how do you operate along with other teams at a train level. Okay, so this is where things are going. So who's using SAFe? And this is just, there's a lot of companies out there, but this is literally, I'm telling you from the people I've spoken to, and people have taken classes from me, and people that I know, pharmaceutical are adapting to SAFe. Pfizer is one of example. Now, remember when I say this with a caveat, many organizations are huge. So they are adapting SAFe, but they might be adapting SAFe in certain departments or certain pockets, right? So you cannot say that, oh, the entire organization is SAFe. No, but they're still adapting. So Pfizer, I know people that are actually in that company or are SAFe certified. They're doing some of the program increments, events, what SAFe recommends, and so on and so forth. Automobile, Mercedes as an example, I believe is also doing SAFe. Banks, certainly, I know Bank of America, HSBC, JP Morgan. A lot of insurance companies like MetLife, AIG, Northwestern Mutual. Healthcare is spreading with SAFe. Like, remember, 20,000 enterprises across, right? This is a small subset of the people or companies that I have come across. Airlines industry is moving into adoption of SAFe. Certainly, Verizon has a lot of recs open for SAFe RT positions. AT&T does that. AT&T is even one of their partners that spoke 2 years ago in their conference and the summit about a customer experience, that adapted SAFe. Governments are doing it. A lot of big contractors like Northrop Grumman are also have people that are implementing SAFe for their government clients. Okay, so all in all, it's spreading. Currently, it's spreading. Again, 10 years, we don't know where it goes, but today you can run away from it, but you can't hide from it, right? Agile being the same idea. You can run away from it, you can't hide from it. So by definition, this is your formal definition. SAFe is for lean enterprises. And I usually talk about this in the class. Lean comes from Toyota, and it's all about lean practices. What does really lean mean? Let's look at enterprise and identify as an enterprise where there are waste. And if there are waste at the enterprise level, we need to fix those because we're spending time and money on it. So look for enterprises that are practicing some lean processes. It is a knowledge base of proven integrated principles, right? Like I mentioned, they've done a great job integrating a lot of stuff into this framework. Practices, competencies for achieving your business agility up here by implementing all beautiful practices such as lean, agile, and DevOps at scale. So the question was, where does DevOps fit into the picture? It sure does. We'll talk about it where exactly. Okay, so this is your little high level of the definition. Now, this is where the fun part starts. This is your beautiful framework. And I'm assuming, like you mentioned, everybody's new to this, right? Except I think one of the person had mentioned she's taken a SAFe class in the past, not certified yet. Oh, I see another name. So I see two people who actually taken a class from me that have certified. So these guys are experts now. They should be speaking on behalf of me.
Brother Imtiaz, me too.
Yes. What about you?
Muhammad.
I know. That's what I'm saying. I saw
Yeah.
two names who've taken classes from me. So welcome.
Thank you.
And Mohammed is a great example. He just happens to be on the call. You know, he is a great use case about telling you about has it worked for him? Has this knowledge that he gained has helped him? So let's take a 30 seconds pause, just in a yes or no, or if you want to share something, Mohammed.
Oh yeah.
Learning from, yeah, go ahead.
Oh yeah, definitely. Because currently I'm working with Verizon now as a
Yeah.
RTE, and previously 3 months back I was working for Ernest and Young. So basically in Ernest and Young, we were kind of migrating from Waterfall to Safe, because during those days I took my certification for Safe from Brother Imtiaz for Scrum Master and POPM. So it helped me so much that I was one of the core members who did the migration for 6 teams in EVI from Scrum to Safe, and still they're running Safe, and it has been quite successful. And whatever the inputs I got from Brother Imtiaz, I tried to implement there as well. I gave my good suggestions and stuff, and it worked really good. I got quite appreciation from my leadership for that one. So that's great.
Oh, great. Thank you for sharing that. So, one of the things I practice and is what I preach, and I'll tell you just to sidebar a little bit since you mentioned that, is when I took my classes many years ago, I did not learn the framework as I was hoping I would learn the framework, right? So I spent, back then it was $1,300. Safe was new. I spent $1,300, and I tell this class in my example in my class, like, I took the class and I didn't really learn anything. I spent $1,300. I came out. I didn't even pass my leading Safe class because the person that I took the class was very dry. He took like 15 minutes break every hour and didn't really focus on the framework, and I felt really lost. So one of the things I took back as a way, and I credit my mom for that, who's been a teacher for 35 years, and I didn't think I would ever teach, but apparently it seems like I'm doing it as a decent job. So the point being here is when I try to teach a class or a session, I try to really um, make sure people understand the concepts, because anybody can speak on the surface level. People will like just learn and go, but what have I actually left as a legacy, right? What have they gained so they can actually now spread the word, meaning from an education, not spread the word, refer me, but maybe train others, teach others, and maybe help others to do better at their jobs and maybe even get good jobs. So my focus has always been trying to make sure the learning happens in a much better and quality way than just like a number. You're not a number for me anymore. You're people that I really care about. So I try to mentor and help them as best as I can. I do spend a lot of effort teaching these practices. Okay, so this is a great framework. We cannot go through it the entire framework because obviously it's a whole 2-day class, but I'm not going to sell that here. But I want to understand, you would understand a couple of things very important. um, I'll keep it simple. The 7 core competencies are these little things out there, the buttons or the circles. Okay, and we'll talk about this. This is actually a slide I put together last night. We'll talk about that. And these are the 7 things that the SAFE framework says. Look, as a business, if you understand that leader, having a lean, agile leader, and having a idea about team and technical being agility, you're delivering your products in an agile way, you have a better view of the enterprise solution delivery. Your portfolio at some level is also thinking about ways to plan your yearly budgets in an agile way. The fact that you're an organization that continuously wants to learn and has a culture of learning, growing, innovation, the fact, and then you're, as an organization, you have these agility practices, they will make you an agile company, right? So this is where the whole business agility comes into the page. Now, then we have to talk about the other things in the framework. Okay, so ask me a question. I'm going to answer most of your questions. I'm pretty confident I will, but so now we know we have a team with a scrum master and a product owner. Same thing, nothing different. What's new? I know this. I am a scrum team and I have exactly those roles. Or you are a Kanban team, and that's why reason I put those 2 slides. So you could be a team that runs Scrum. You can be a team that runs Kanban. Doesn't matter. Okay. You can even have a team within Scrum that runs XP practices, extreme programming from a development, and you become a Scrum XP kind of a shop, right? Great. That's not the point. The point is the team is working on a backlog, which we said has user stories. Okay, so nothing different so far. That's where your scope ends when you are a scrum master or a product owner at a team level. That's pretty much the entire your scope so far. Everything else is all new for you. So when I tell people, look, if I had two apples and if I compared apples to apples, and if somebody tells me, where should I spend my for really discussion's sake, $500 or even $1,000 for that matter, where do I spend my $1,000? Do I take, and nothing, not to credit any of the other practices. I am a CSM, I'm a CSP from Scrum Alliance. Do I spend my $500 on a CSM, or do I spend my $500 on a SAFe certifications? I would say probably better value here, because it just doesn't teach you this piece, but it also teaches you this piece. Correct? So, I'm careful where I spend my money, right? So should you all. So if I have the most value, I would probably, if everything were equal, I would probably pick this framework over the other, because it just broadens my scope of learning. Yes, I've learned how to be a Scrum Master, but now I'm going to teach you how to be a Scrum Master at a enterprise level. So what's that about? So we will focus on this area called Essential SAFe. So let's talk about that for a second. And I will briefly, very, very briefly touch upon these framework areas, okay? So let's talk about the 7 core competencies. And this is new. They used to be less, now they're 7. And this is, again, depending on what class you take, you won't learn all this. I think Kelly mentioned she'd taken a Leading SAFe. Leading SAFe is a class that talks a lot about these principles. And we'll talk about each of those certifications. I'll tell you exactly what they talk about, so you have a educational decision, informed decision that you can make for your own benefit. So business agility is all about principles, core values, customer being at the center of everything. Okay. Now you have two sides, the right and the left, and they like to call leadership as being here, because why? Leadership, as we all know, is the foundation of a lot of things that happens in transformation, right? If the leaderships aren't supporting, if there's not a culture of agility and they're not leading those changes, then transformations will fail. And I think there was another question, if I can remember, why are people having a hard time adopting to these large scale frameworks? Well, I think a couple of things. One is you don't have the right learning. You don't understand what this framework is about, and you're just kind of winging it or trying to experiment it without understanding the principles behind it. Understanding the principles is more important than following those processes and tools. And then second is, have your leadership been trained to understand what the value of large scale framework is? What value do they bring? How do they bring people together? How do you plan and all that stuff, right? So a lot of many other reasons. It could be a very strong culture that doesn't want to change, and therefore you see that if you want to adapt to any of these frameworks, you have to lead by example. Leaders have to lead by example. They have to have a mindset from being a fixed person, a fixed mindset, to being adaptive or willing to change. So anybody who has a very fixed mindset, even in your organizations, if their managers have said, oh, agile sucks, listen, I don't care what you call it. Call it Humpty Dumpty for all I care, right? But the idea is not this framework. The idea is, are you as an individual really open to those changes? Or are you fixed with the way you want to do things and you just want to ignore everything else? That attitude is where you suffer. So you have to understand and broaden your mindset with anything else, right? We learn every day. I'm not perfect. I'm sure none of you guys are perfect. So if there's a mistake that we do, we learn from it. And nothing wrong with that. So start learning and change your way you think. And as an enterprise or a leader, you have to be leading this change. You know, there's a great quote from Deming that says, if you can't come, send no one. Meaning, as a leader, if you don't have the time and have the skin in the game, or you want to invest on this, don't send your another person in this meeting. If you can't show up, that means you're just not investing in it. So forget it. Nothing's going to work. Okay. So leadership as a change is important. Teams have to be thinking about agile. So there has to be an agile team. Now, agile team is not just core developers, right? It could be, SAFe talks about a lot of things called marketing. It could be a marketing team, it could be a security team, it could be an HR team. So all of these organizations or departments can actually be truly can work as an agile team. Then you have something called teams of teams, which is the train. So how do you bring these 5 teams or 5 to 12 teams, but in our example, 5 teams together and form this bigger train? And then how quality, like everything else, is important. Okay, so leadership, teams being agile, product delivery should also be thinking about the way, how do I deliver product in an agile way, i.e. quickly talking about customer, thinking about design thinking techniques, right? There's so many ways you can use tools that help you bring customers and get their feedback using design thinking workshops and techniques. You want to deliver something regularly, which is called cadence. So I want to deliver something every 2 weeks. And I want to continuously do this in a DevOps pipeline. Okay, so here's your little screenshot of DevOps. So product delivery should also be thinking about the way agile teams, leadership. I'm not going to go too much here. Enterprise as a whole, when they're large solutions, lean, the portfolio should also be thinking about the way to deliver agile in way you strategy your budgets, how you manage your budgets, how you manage your lean governance practices in your portfolio operations. An organization should be somebody that is always leading and thinking in a way of it's too small for me. Lean thinking people and agile teams, right? Always think about, it comes back to the mindset. Lean business operations, your operations are also operations lean. It's not just dev, but also ops. And then strategy, very important part. As in organizations, are you thinking ahead of your business strategy? Are you thinking a way that you can quickly adapt to changes, market conditions, needs, customer demand, COVID, unexpected environmental behaviors, compliances issues, elections, whatever they are? You have to strategically think about in an agile way. And then finally, as an organization and also as individuals, you want to be a learning organizations. You want to be innovative and you want to have the drive to continuously and relentlessly improve, both at your individual level, at your team level, at your organization level, department level, and at the enterprise organization level, and at the leadership level. So all in all, you should be a person who wants to relentlessly improve. Okay, so let's start with this framework. Any questions so far? We started at 1, we're 2, so we have 30 minutes to wrap up.
I have one quick question.
Yeah.
Yes, and let's say just the one of the companies actually implemented essential part of the same framework,
Yeah.
SAFe framework.
Yeah.
And the organization still actually implemented SAFe competencies of the SAFe framework, or based on the framework, actually, which part of the competencies actually organization needs to implement?
Okay. So let me make a note of that. I just have to stop the sharing for a quick second. Okay, so give me 1 second. I'll go back.
Because
so the question is, which part of the framework should, which part of the framework should the organization adapt, right, or start with? I'm guessing that's you. Okay, so I'm going to do that. All right. So exactly to my point, when an organization starts, am I sharing? Are you guys seeing the essential SAFe or something else?
Essential SAFe.
You are seeing that? Okay, good. I wasn't sure. I couldn't see the green bar around it. So so the question is, look, I am an organization and I want to start adapting SAFe. That's exactly why the reason they call it essential. Meaning, if you're a brand new company and wants to scale, this is the level where you would start with. And what does that level mean? That level is exactly what I'm going to talk about now. The level means that you have teams who are agile, you're practicing thing, and you have something called an agile release train. And this is where you bring in all these individual teams to work and deliver continuously delivery pipeline, where you're constantly exploring product ideas, customer needs, demands. You're working together and you're continuously integrating, you're continuously deploying. So we'll talk about that in a second. That really blends into a little bit of DevOps concept, but let me re-explain this concept to you for one more second. I'm going to erase this. So now the question is, I am a new company and I want to start learning Agile or SAFe, and this is where you start with Essential SAFe. So what is Essential SAFe telling you in a nutshell? Essential SAFe is telling you that every X number of weeks, the train comes together with those 50 people. In our example, it's actually a little more than 50. So there's a number that they tell 50 to 125 plus. But in our example, 5 teams times 10 people, 50 people. I bring 5 teams every X number of weeks, and I bring them into something called a program increment, PI planning, program increment planning. And this is where I break those silos, right? So 50 people come and spend 2 days based on the SAFe framework, spend 2 days virtually now, and they plan for the entire 2 days in this event called PI. And then the end of the PI, they have a goal or objective that they will deliver to. This is called the PI objective. Okay, so the teams are coming together and coming out with a PI objective. So that's one of the key differentiators of this framework, that it breaks the silos and brings all the 50 people into something called a train. And the end of the planning today, they have objectives that they have to meet and commit to as a entire train, not as a silo team, but as an entire train. Obviously, each team has their objectives, but all those individual objectives are rolled up to a train level delivery commitment. And when you finish this event, you continue doing your 2 weeks iteration. So these yellow lines are still your sprints. So that, back to my point, if you're a Scrum Master just in an Agile team, all you're doing is, I'm doing my 2 weeks, I'm doing my 2 weeks, I'm doing my 2 weeks. You stop there. But here, you have to be involved in something called a PI. And when you do these 2 weeks, when you're running these 2 weeks, you can't just think about yourself. You have to think about all the other 50 people on the train and all the other 4 other Scrum teams that you planned together, quote unquote dependencies together, and you have to deliver something together at the end of this PI. Okay, so that is my point. This scales entirely a new perspective, right? You never thought about. Now, there might be ways that you're probably doing it. You have something called, hey, we have a Scrum of Scrum. We do a Scrum of Scrum. Great, that's great. That's one element of the entire piece. And a Scrum of Scrum is when you bring Scrum Masters to a meeting or a ceremony and you kind of collaborate and plan and track your objectives and whatever you want to do. But that's just one element. But the entire framework says there's a PI event. There's a lot of things that you do in here. There's a lot of demo integration that happens based on the CI/CD pipeline, which is the DevOps pipeline. You have to come back and do the same thing. There's a lot of things around how do you plan future PIs and roadmaps and solution roadmaps and PI roadmaps, and how there's a team or a role called product management, which could have product managers, not project managers, but product managers, and how these individuals are a new set of department that are always thinking about customer and how they're prioritizing the vision and the roadmap so the teams can actually deliver on it. Okay. Now there's, by the way, a new role, which is a SAFe role, which Mohammed just mentioned about, hey, I'm an RTE. What is that? The RTE is another role called Release Train Engineer. This individual is facilitating this big train of 50 people. This individual, Scrum Master, is at the team level. This individual is also called the Chief Scrum Master. So the question was raised, hey, I am a Scrum Master. I've done Scrum Master. I've also done Advanced Scrum Master certification. What should I do next? Well, if you're at a train level, and I told this to Waze as well, so if you're at the train level, there are only 2, well, from a role perspective, the next step for you, whoever had asked me the question, was potentially doing a Release Train Engineers class. Okay, RT class. It's a 3-day class. It's a little more advanced. That could be. But I would say if you're in that role, or you think you're going to move that role, or you think there's opportunities because there are jobs as RT, I tell people, look, don't take my class. Go on LinkedIn, go search for yourself. If you feel there's a lot of jobs that are asking for SAFe, then come and talk to me, and then I will guide you what you want to do, right? Because you have to first figure out what you want to do. And it's not one size fits all. Everybody's very individual. Everybody has a different career. Everybody has a different experience and history of work. So a lot of times I tell people, let me understand your background first, and I will then recommend based on your need. Again, I will just guide you. You go take class from somebody else. I don't care. But my point is, understand what makes the most sense for you. Does a SAFe class guarantee you a job? Absolutely not. No certification will guarantee you a job, but at least it will maybe broaden your scope for other opportunities. As long as you understand the framework, as long as you're able to communicate and explain and maybe even do good in your interviews. If you just learn and didn't learn anything, you just took a class and didn't learn anything, then you didn't learn anything. Okay, so now there's an individual called release train engineer, a product manager, and so forth. There's also something called architecture. We won't get into that, but just so you know, there's also other roles in this framework. Question? Okay,
RT,
is this?
RT is kind of just the chief of the Scrum Masters.
Yeah,
Okay.
Chief Scrum Master, yes. So since you all use Zoom, show of thumbs. Is it helping? Are you guys following me? Am I boring? If you're appreciating, you're liking what I'm valuable, I just want to see show of hands, thumbs up. Yeah, okay. So is my pace okay? All right, a lot of thumbs up. Great, fantastic. That helps a lot. It gives you motivated. Okay. All right, so now let's go back to this beautiful framework. So we spoke about essential SAFe in a very nutshell-like situation. And then, I don't know why I have this. Oh, I was just going to further expand on this particular picture. So zooming in into my program increments. I am still running my 2 weeks sprints, or SAFe calls it iterations. And I keep on doing that. And then every PI, I come in every X number of weeks, let's say a quarter for our discussion, but it's generally 8 to 12 weeks. And again, this is a great example. This is a great example of a question that says, is it prescribed? The answer is yes. SAFe is saying that it is every 8 to 12 weeks, you come and do something called a PI event. I took that and I tweaked it. I said, no, 8 to 12 weeks isn't working for me. And again, depending on my organization context, and it's a little different than what SAFe recommends hardcore. Well, recommends, I shouldn't say hardcore. We have taken a route for a 13 weeks iteration. Some may ask me why 13? Because if you look at your calendar, it aligns very well to your quarters. This doesn't align very well. So it's just too much work for me. At my level, I don't want to recreate a enterprise strategy for every 1 year where it shifts, calendar shifts. It's very consistent. I look for simplicity in my life, so this is where it worked for me. So I tweaked it a little bit. And another thing I tweaked, again, for my organization is instead of a 2-day PI event, and again, if you're new, obviously you need to do 2 days, but if you're matured, then we've come down to a 1-day event. Okay. SAFe prescribes 2 days. Well, that didn't work for me. Well, it kind of worked earlier, but we found better ways to reduce in some level cost, because at some point we were all physically participating, right? So people were flying in from different states of the world, and a 2-day cost is obviously more of an expense than 1-day cost. So can you optimize? Can you look for lean opportunities and identify waste? And we identify some waste, and we said, you know what, we can actually adapt to a 1-day, very successful 1-day PI. And I'm very proud to say that when we went into a COVID in March, around March 15, most of us ended up staying home, correct? March 22nd was our PIs. So I have 8 trains. PIs were scheduled literally 2 weeks from COVID hit. So our organizations, and I was able to coach all of them actually to successfully run virtual PIs within less than 2 weeks of rolling into virtual. So we got a lot of appreciation for that, right? Okay, so let's go back for a second. And I want to talk about this framework a little bit more, and then we will open up questions and talk about some of the options that you have from an certification perspective. So we spoke about very high level on essential SAFe. Where do you start? Yeah, you start here. What's the basic minimum of starting? that you have X number of teams, generally 5 to 12, 50 people plus is a good start. You could start small. I honestly think if you're 30 and you want to kind of experiment, go ahead, do it. Again, same question. They prescribe 50 plus. You feel you're 35, you want to experiment it, nobody's going to stop you. You have to have the condition of something called an agile release train. And you have to do, obviously, structure it in a way that it's cross-functional. Like any agile team, the train should also be cross-functional. And then you have a large solution that talks about if you're a very high, big company doing really complicated solutions. And then if you're at the portfolio level, how do I take this strategy and how do I then assign my budgets around it? And how do I create epics? And how do those epics come down to the train? And how do the trains then come down to the team? Right. So that's your hierarchy. So another question that was asked is how it should all align? Absolutely, it should all align. It should all align back to the strategy. So anything I do here should go up to the train, should go up to the epic, and should go up to the strategy or something called teams. Right. So all comes up to the enterprise strategy. Okay. So that is your big picture. They call this big picture. All right. Let's go back. Where's my touchpad? Okay. So that kind of gives you an overview of the framework in itself. We'll take 10 minutes to talk about certification options that you have, okay, for yourselves. So SAFe obviously has all these beautiful certifications, like every framework and every company. They obviously want to sell their certifications, right? The cost of these certifications. You cannot take an exam without taking a class. So you're mandated to take a class to be eligible to take an exam. So there are some classes. Scrum.org is famous for that, right? You can take your exams or certification without actually taking a class. PMP is similar like that. You don't have to take a class to go sit for an exam, but they actually ask you to take a class. So I'm going to break these into different buckets so people can understand what it is. There's something called leading SAFe. So if you're a manager in the position, if you're not specific to a role, if you're not a scrum master, product owner, or an architect or a developer, and you want to get a higher perspective of the horizontal, and it's more theory based, what's this? What are these core principles? What is the framework? What's a PI? What happens in a PI? Then you start with something called leading SAFe. Okay. If you're specific to a role, scrum master, you have two options. You start with the scrum master. So this is equal to your CSM. And I call it CSM plus, right? Because as I said, it kind of broadens your scope around the enterprise itself. So generally it's a foundation class. If you're totally new and if you want to start your Scrum Master journey, this is where you would typically start. Okay, typically. Again, you have to assess for yourself. Do I enjoy Scrum Master? Do you think I'm somebody who can actually facilitate sessions? Do I feel comfortable? If you don't feel comfortable in that role, then this is probably not something you should invest in because the classes obviously have to pay for it. Then you can have the option to do Advanced Scrum Master, Product Owner, Product Manager, if you're in that particular role. This class mostly focuses on PO and a little bit on PM, product manager, just touches a 70-30 percentage, right? Why? Because actually there's an entire class for product management that SAFe sells. This is a 3-day advanced class. So if you're more of a team level PO and you want to collaborate and understand what a product manager role is, this is a great place to start, right? It teaches you about user stories, vision, some design thinking techniques for empathy map. So you kind of get a little idea into a product management role and a lot of product owner. Okay. Scrum for teams is a typically when you're a new team and you want to start or launch or train, that's typically where your organizer will start training you in SAFe for teams. Okay, where we bring in all the 5 teams together who are forming a train, and you would get training in that particular area. They obviously, like everybody else, has a DevOps certification. And the question was, where does DevOps fit into this hierarchy? This is exactly where the DevOps fits in, CI/CD. Now, DevOps is a lot more than that, but the point about here is you do not take, my recommendation is you don't take a DevOps class in SAFe if you haven't taken at least one of these classes, because DevOps is more value stream driven. It's tool agnostic. They won't tell you how to do a entire build a tool chain. It's not hands-on where you build the DevOps branches and pipeline. It's more value stream, understanding your structure, but it doesn't talk about anything to do with the SAFe framework. So if you haven't taken any of the other class, you have no clue what the SAFe framework is about. I would not recommend that you jump to DevOps here. It could probably be a second option if you want to move to DevOps, not your first option, in my opinion. Okay. And I am, and trust me, I'm the first one who tells a lot of people, look, this is not for you. Don't take it. It doesn't matter to me. You will be happy to pay and come for class, but I'm telling you, it's not going to work for you. So I've actually told a lot of people not to take some classes because it just doesn't make sense for them. Architecture has its own role, engineering has its own role, product manager has its own role, lean portfolio has its own role. Many of these are 3-day classes. And obviously there's an RTE class for if you're a release train engineer. And then implementing SAFe is one of the second most highest. Well, certification is probably the highest, but SPC is somebody who can implement SAFe in their company. So I'm an SPC, right? So I am able to code organizations and implement the entire SAFe framework for the enterprises, and also allows me to teach all these classes. So I tell people many times, if you're going to spend more than 3 classes on a SAFe or 4, then there's diminishing return. Okay, so you have to be a little careful where you spend your money. If you're going to spend at least, if you say I'm going to take 4 classes here and eventually I want to become an SAFe, then I would say no, stop at 3 or 4, because you're probably wasting too much money at that point, right? If you want to do this, you might as well jump at some point there. So for the person who asked me 2 questions, he said, where do I go? You have 2 options. If you're a release train engineer at the train level, that's an option. Or if you want to lead or be a enterprise level coach, not necessarily enterprise level coach, but SAFe coach and implement SAFe, then you should do the implementing SAFe class. Okay. Again, these are a little expensive, but it's your choice. If you ever decide to take a class, you're more than welcome to reach out to me. If I'm not teaching it, I will connect you with people I know. This is the only class I don't teach because it needs somebody above me to teach the class. So I have people that I know in the community or the Agile community that work. Okay, so very, very high level. Again, if I am running a Scrum Master class on November 21st and 22nd weekend, DevOps is scheduled for 28. POPM is on December 12th, and then Scrum Master is happening, Advanced Scrum Master is happening this year. So it's a little tight schedule, but that's the plan. RTE is on a private offering. And anything else, if I'm not teaching, if you not this year, next year, you're more than welcome to ping me and we can figure out a date that works for most of you guys. Okay. So I can put a group together if there's enough interest. I'm happy to do that for you guys. Weekday, weekend, depending on the preference. Okay. So that's not about me. It's just a quick summary. So what we'll do is quickly, oh, I disabled chat. How silly am I? Okay. So that won't work. So I think that pretty much wraps up my intent in an hour and a half that I had with you today. Let's go back to the questions that we had, and then we'll open up the call for any feedback, anything that you appreciated or not, anything else for future offerings, we can do that. So question number 1. Are you seeing my Word document? Yeah, with the questions? Okay. Question number 1 is, I'm a Scrum Master and Product Owner. How is what is the SAFe about? So we kind of understood, I'm here and the SAFe framework is this big, right? So how you fit in to the entire SAFe framework. How is DevOps related? DevOps is part of one of the practices within the SAFe framework. It says both at the team level and the train level, you have to have this DevOps pipeline for continuous integration and delivery deployment. How prescriptive is SAFe? SAFe is a framework. Again, it recommends certain guardrails and guidelines. If you feel there's some adjustments that you need to do, you do that based on I wouldn't go too far away from the framework because then you're just creating a lot of problems for yourself. But if there's some opportunities, you do that. Future and SAFe with respect to DevOps. Future and SAFe Future and Agile, there is obviously Future and Agile, right? If you're completely new, as I said, you can run, but you can't hide. If you're brand new and this is not something for you, don't take this class. Don't take this certification. Go look for the basic ones. And as I said, if you guys want, I can try to do a fundamental class for you guys. I did that last time. It was 2 hours. It was 100 people dialed in. So we can do that. Or if you're specifically in DevOps, there's probably another practice that is a little more mature in the DevOps area, and I would probably recommend them. I'm a teacher, I'm an instructor there too. I can teach the DevOps foundational classes and those as well. So if you're interested, you can think about that. Coaching. So two options. As a Scrum Master, you have the option to become a release train engineer, or you jump right to the implementing SPC and become a implement safe for organizations. Why are people struggling? We said about the core competencies. They are not thinking about the entire organizations. Maybe leadership support in some cases could be there. Maybe just individuals are not willing to change. Maybe you haven't been trained in the right way of doing things. So it could be a lot of things why people struggle in large scale. Market trends, is it worth to pursue? That's really your call. You figure out for yourself in LinkedIn, is it really opportunities out there? Are they jobs? I will tell you, right? Taking a 2-day class and getting certified doesn't guarantee you anything, no matter which certification you take. But it will just enhance your knowledge about something. Maybe it gives you an opportunity to get an interview and maybe even succeed at it. And obviously, I hopefully answered everything about Curious George's question on SAFe, what it is and what it's not. Okay, perfect timing. Not bad. Questions for the next 6 minutes for me, please.
Yeah, I've got a quick one.
Sure.
Do you see the safe environment changing, or Scrum in general changing, now that we aren't able to be face to face, and that we are a little bit more siloed than we usually are? I'm used to being embedded with my team, being able to understand their needs and work with them closely, and now I'm having to rely on everyone sitting in a Zoom channel
Yeah.
and hoping they're discussing things. Has that changed the environment?
Yeah, I mean, look, we cannot compare the in-person experience with virtual. There'll always be challenges there, but many are adapting to it because there's no other way option anymore, right? So you have to look for better ways to adapt and get better at it. Virtual, having a face-to-face Zoom video is very productive. You have tools now which are real time, so leverage your tools. You should, as a Scrum Master, should be able to go to the tool at any time and give an idea where the team is in their current iteration.
Yeah.
Uh, Nothing really changes as long as that entire core values are still there. Whether I'm physically there or mentally there, but I'm still there. I'm still have an ownership. I still have a responsibility. We still have a goal as a team. We still have those mutual respect and trust with the team and members. So we have to just adapt. This is our new way. I told this in an old LinkedIn post. I said, waterfall to agile, agile to virtual agile. This is the reality. This is going to stay there for a long time. We never were teaching classes. SAFe never wanted us to teach virtual classes, but now they have no choice. Everything is now virtual. Organizations generally who are very 100 years old could never imagine them having employees work remotely. And now they're successfully still working. So that is the reality. You have to learn and adapt.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Earlier, you mentioned that you're willing to offer 1 day boot camp for Agile for, I think you said minimal fee.
Yeah.
I'll be interested in, is any, how can I maybe reach out to you via WhatsApp?
Yeah. Okay, we can do that. So I have two options, right? Depending of people. Do you want if you guys are totally new, do you want a very basic 2 hour, 1 hour, 2 hour session on Agile Foundation, or do you want to invest like a 1 day boot camp on and getting some training certification out of that? I am okay. I have to spend time, but I can do that.
I would say 1 day boot camp.
Okay. All right. So we'll do another survey in the community. I did a survey. I'll send out the survey again, and you guys tell me if I find there's an opportunity and people want to invest in a 1 day. I can invest my time in there as well. So I've done this in the past, by the way. The person you heard earlier took my boot camp online many years ago, and that was his very first class. Is he still on the call, Mohammed? I don't know if he's still on the call. But that's how we started. His journey started there, and right after that class, he was able to actually get a job. So I was very happy with that.
Any minimum requirement to that 1 day?
No. This is nothing. You will learn from the very basic from me.
No, I mean from attendees' perspective.
No, not really. I mean, not really. We'll figure it out. If there's enough people, and depending what the balance of the money is, because for that particular class, one day I will have to charge you something because people are putting money into it, then I know they're committing into it, right? Otherwise, people will sign up for free sessions and not show up.
Sure.
So obviously for spending a day, I need to make sure people are committed to it. That's all it is.
Look forward to
When
it.
I did this class online, I did it in person. Actually, I did it one time. I had a very good turnout. And it was because I had to rent a room, I had to order food. So the money that I collected was really for I didn't make any money, but it was just for the commitment reason. So I'm okay with that. We'll figure out something.
Thank you.
And you will reach out to us over the
Yeah,
email.
we'll have to figure it out. I'll put a survey in the email and through a survey, and then you guys tell me if there's enough interest. Foundational starting class or one day boot camp. We can do it. It'll be a lot of hands-on though. I'll make sure it's hands-on. I don't like to just talk and not have you guys learn. So it'll be a lot of hands-on.
Yeah, I think it will be a good start for us who doesn't have any knowledge
I
on
am
that.
more than happy. Yeah, I am more than
I'd
happy.
be
to do that.
interested. I'd be interested
Okay,
too.
great. So we have looks like there's
3-4 people here so far, Imtiaz. So
okay. So I'll figure out my one day. It'll be during the holidays, somewhere in the holidays. If I can put the curriculum together, we'll figure out something.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. Other questions for me? Was this helpful, guys? Was it worth your
Very.
time and investment?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm
Wonderful.
glad.
thank
Yeah,
you.
hi, Imtiaz, one question.
So like,
Yes. So I heard one question and I heard a greeting. So first the question. Who had a question?
I just have a quick question.
Yeah.
So I currently am an MBA student and I'm trying to learn more about agile.
It's a good
or
thing you said MBA. You didn't say I'm a PhD student. I'd be
No.
wow, I have a PhD student in the class.
No, it's MBA. So would you recommend, like, I'm completely new to this, so would you
Yeah.
recommend pursuing the safe agile route, like getting some certifications in there, or
No.
starting like the
Well,
basic, the boot camp?
I would not recommend safe for you because you're still an MBA student, as you said. You haven't worked in a safe environment.
Right.
When you take this class and you don't use it, then you're gonna forget
True.
everything about it. Plus,
True.
there's a renewal cost, right? $100 you have to pay every year to renew your certification. So,
Mhm.
I would not want you to spend even $100 at this point if you don't think you'll get it. If you learn the basic and if you feel this is an area you want to really enjoy, and you see yourself being one of these roles, then you want to come and say, you know what, now I really want to get a certification. With one day boot camp and the knowledge you learn, hopefully you'll be confident enough to speak in your interviews and look for opportunities.
Okay.
Okay, if you do that, and if you find, and then if you say, oh, by the way, they need quote unquote a certain certification on the resume, then we can come and you can talk to me and we can figure out which one's best for you. But I wouldn't invest money at this point for you if I were you.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you.
As I said, I've told this to many people. It doesn't, people will be there and sell you everything under the roof. I'm not somebody like that. I'll be honest.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. Others? Question?
Yeah, hi, Imtiaz, this is Abdullah.
Yeah.
Just one question. Is there any difference between the Scrum from Scrum.org? You know that PSM1 certification
Yes.
and all that?
Yes.
And Safe Scrum Master. Are these two from different orgs?
Yes.
Or...
Yes, they are. They are. Let me go back quickly to my slide. So Scrum Alliance teaches, certifies you in these CSM. Very, very most commonly certification out there, right?
Yeah.
Very well known, of course, but it's expensive, meaning, I shouldn't say expensive. It's still a 2-day class. And pretty much people start here. Now, you guys have matured. I would, again, because Scale Agile wasn't as big as it was many years ago, at least not for me, I started there too. But I tell people, if two apples and apples, if you want to spend money in CSM, you might as well just spend the same amount of money in SSM and learn something more. PSM1 is fantastic, and Scrum.org.
Yeah.
And I tell this to people too. Now, if you're really financially constrained and you don't want to spend the money and you have somewhat of a knowledge, but you want to get certified and a recognized certification at that level, then Scrum.org is the best option you have for, I believe, $150.
Yes.
Yeah. So you know your stuff, and Afra, if you ask the same question to me, once you learn the stuff and then you feel that you can read a Scrum guide and you understand it, you want to spend $150 and get certified, PSM1 is the best option out there for the most economical budget, right? For those that are budget conscious and want to get certified and have the knowledge, why not? This is the best option. And by the way, it's very, very well respected as well. So
One question I have,
Yeah.
so if somebody gonna take this PSM certification,
Yeah.
How beneficial is it's in the job market? I mean, it's a how's the job market for it?
it's a good certification. It's a little hard exam. So just if you don't know your practices and the framework well enough, you would probably not pass. Therefore, it's a little harder. Having a PSM or any certification, as I said, is only a checkbox for most part of it from an interview perspective that you may get selected. If you don't have the experience, that's always a challenge, right? Getting your interview is the best opportunity you can have, and then portraying your skills. So getting any of the certification doesn't guarantee you any of those unfortunate jobs out there. But it is respected, meaning if I see there are many certifications out there that are not as well recognized. And if I see that, if I was interviewing, if I see that, if I see a PSM, I have more respect for obviously I have more respect for the PSM because I know it is. And I have the other no-name brands out there, and there are more than like 24 out there. So you have to be very careful. You might go and spend $200 somewhere else, but that $200 is just a waste of money. So you might as well spend $200 something that's more valuable. So you have to be very careful what certification you do and where you spend your money. There has been a free one out there, foundational one. When people took my last class, I shared that foundational one. It luckily happened to be free. It's not the best recognized brand out there, but hey, it's free. You took my class, 2 hours, you learned, you went there, took a free exam, and you have a foundational certification. Nothing wrong with that, right? For no money, why not? But I wouldn't tell you to take that certification if you had to pay like $100. I wouldn't do that. For free, it's great. Other questions?
The free was the PSM one?
No, the free one was a Scrum Foundation, something called Cert Pro or something like that I recommended. Certi Pro. And it was just literally, luckily, it was that period they're offering free exams, and people took my class, and I said, hey, by the way, there's a free exam. You go, it's not me. You go take it, pass it, get it. And I think over 40 people there took that class and took that exam and passed.
Okay.
One more question I have with them.
Yeah.
I see a lot of people I see a lot of jobs in the product management and the product owner.
Yeah.
They are coming pretty fast.
Yeah.
So if somebody like me who doesn't have the very good knowledge or the good background on not a good background on the Scrum or the Agile.
Yeah.
If somebody wants to go into that field and do this certification product on the product management, what do you think about it?
Look, I think the POPM is a pretty great certification. It teaches you both areas of work. You learn from foundational about stories and mapping and all the other stuff. And then you learn from a PI perspective of the SAFe framework, what is the PI about? So you get a lot of good knowledge around that one class. So, again, if you want to take the class, you learn. There's no question about that you will not learn, period. The question is, will you be able to use that? Maybe if you have the certification, like I said, go to LinkedIn, look for POPM jobs. And if you feel there's a lot of opportunities, then maybe spend money and invest money in it. Okay. But I think it's a good class. I personally like Scrum Master classes and the POPM classes and the RT classes because they're really value driven and people really learn something from it. It's not like theory, a lot of, concepts. It's really like activity driven. So.
Okay.
Okay. All right, last 2 questions and we'll wrap up because of sake of time. And you know where to reach me, so.
Just a question, since a lot of folks here are pretty new and trying to get certifications.
Sure.
So just a random search when you do on Google, and there are a lot of institutes. Sometimes they would charge you, some will tell you, okay, it's $1,000 for a 2-day class.
Yeah.
And then you get a certification. Some will charge you $600.
Yeah.
Now, Scrum Alliance, which you mentioned, is a pretty reliable one, and it has some reputation. They are charging $699, $700. An instructor teaches you a 2-day class, and then you take a certification. The exam is included. It has 2 attempts. So what's the difference between all these places charging you different.
So I'll answer in two ways. The first question is if I have a $6.99 Scrum Alliance CSM, and if I have a $6.99 Safe Scrum Master, at this point, hopefully you've made some decision saying that if I'm going to spend $6.99 on CSM, maybe I should spend $6.99 on a Safe certification. Why? Because it will actually broaden your scope, right? So that would be my recommendation. That's why I said if everything equal, I would pick one. Now the question is, why is there a difference in prices? There will always be difference in prices because there's a certain price structure that we are supposed to list our classes from Safe specifically. Not everybody follows those guidelines. And then you will find a huge spectrum, especially now with virtual. Everybody can teach. People from UK are teaching classes in US. People from India are teaching classes from US and vice versa. So you can imagine, not to belittle anybody, but you can get somebody in India who will actually literally teach it for you $200. They will, to be honest. People in US are teaching for very little money. So there's value. Now I'll tell you, do your homework on the trainer. Not everybody, obviously trainers are different. Everybody teaches a different style. I have a different style of teaching. Others have different style of teaching. So if money was a factor, you reach out to me, we'll figure out, what's the sweet spot for you. My classes are generally higher because I put in a lot of effort and value into it. I don't teach at the surface level because I know the passion I teach it with, and I know what you'll get out of it. There's quality in there. But we can talk offline if you want to figure out something. If and I can recommend many people. You tell me, look, I have only $200. So I said, yeah, no guarantee. People have taken classes from people that for $3.99, $4.99 have come back to me. They've literally come back to me, honest truth. I've said, I didn't pass the class. I failed it. I didn't understand anything. Can you help me? I said, I'm so sorry. That was your choice. I can't spend 2 days going to the same class for you. So you chose class based on price. You got what you, and again, this is not a general statement, but some cases you pay for what you get for, right? So it's nothing different than that. And I'm flexible. I'm flexible. My intent is I tell people, look, my intent is not to get rich. I don't want to become a millionaire by teaching. I teach this because I enjoy giving back to the community. So if I lose $100 a year, I'll pay for that. Don't worry. And I tell people, and this is a known fact. I tell people, look, if you saved money from me, and if you feel that you benefited with my knowledge and you passed, then if you really think you saved money from me and you got a good deal, then go donate $5 to any charity you want to do. It doesn't matter to me what religion you follow, what community you're in. Just go donate $5 on my behalf to any of your charity that you support. That I'd be happy with that. Okay, if you save $100 from me, you donate $5, you save $95, but I'm sure I got more than $5 in return. So for donating. So that's how I like to think about the community.
What part do you suggest for the network engineers, like Cisco network engineers?
There's nothing for engineers, hardware specific.
No, it's for networking professionals, like IT professionals, like Cisco.
Yeah. There's not in the safe world. If you're a architecture, I would say take the architecture class. That would probably be the closest to a network engineering class.
But what about RT? Like
No. If you're a networks guy, if you're a Cisco guy, RT and you are like completely opposite, right? You have to become a Scrum Master at some point to run the train. If you're not a Scrum Master and you want to jump to an RT, you're not going to learn anything. You're probably going to fail the exam too because it's not.
What about engineers, like electrical engineers or mechanical engineers?
I would suggest if you're new and you're completely different from a different perspective, then spend that 1-day boot camp, or look for free certification or subsidized certifications. There is a developer certification in Scrum.org. I can't remember which one it is. But there's honestly, there's nothing for network engineers in Cisco in the Agile space. It's more of a Kanban. Then I would probably recommend that you maybe do a Kanban certification, that you understand how ServiceNow or trouble tickets or networking or the security teams and network teams and infrastructure teams work in an Agile way in Kanban style. I would probably recommend that as a certification more than anything else for you.
But I know that many engineers are like working as a Scrum Masters. So
Yeah, you can decide to, you can be anything for all you care, but if you want to become a Scrum Master, then you take the Scrum Master class. But if you say, I am an engineer, I'm a Cisco guy, and I want to get a certification in the Cisco engineering space, then there's nothing close enough to that. But if you say, I am XYZ, but I want to get into an agile role, then you have all the options. Scrum Master, typically people start from the Scrum Master role, typically. Because that's the most easiest to relate, especially, you know, that's the foundation stuff. So, okay, last question. You got to wrap up. I know you guys are enjoying this, but, and I can go on, but let's
Yeah,
keep
what's the career path? What's the certification or the career path someone should follow to be a trainer or a coach?
To be a SAFe specifically trainer or just an agile coach in general? Which one?
To be, you know, to be able to give classes in terms
SAFe?
of
In SAFe?
No, just in general.
No, there's no general. I'll tell you why. Because every practice has its own credentials or requirements to be able to teach their particular certification. So if you want to teach a Scrum Alliance, you have to go through their process of getting to a point we can teach. If you want to teach a SAFe certification, you have to go through there. So every brand out there has their own track to become an authorized trainer. So you cannot say I'm a trainer, I want to do one thing so I can teach everything. No, everything unfortunately is a vertical business for everybody. So if you want to teach from Scrum Alliance, you have to go through a track. You have to do from scrum.org, you have to go through their track. If you want to do from SAFe, you have to go through their track. If you want to teach from something from DevOps, you have to go through their track. If you want to teach from Kanban, you have to go through, yes, everybody has their track. So.
Okay, thank you. I just, so could you talk about the SAFe, for example?
Yeah, so for SAFe, as I said, SPCs, implementing SAFe. Let me go back to the last one here, implementing SAFe allows you to teach SAFe classes like I teach. But it's a 4-day class. It's a little expensive and it's also hard. So if you're new to SAFe, highly likely you probably fail the exam because it's a hard exam.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. All right. Thank you guys very much for your time and your questions. I appreciate everything. So we'll circle back. If you need to reach me, you know where to reach out to me. Thank you for the thumbs up and good luck. Take care.
Thank you.
Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.